I'm Michelle Park from South Korea. My Korean name is Min, but people find it a little bit hard to pronounce, so I shortened like Min. And then they kind of would make fun of my name because it mean, who are not generous. So like, I just okay go for Michelle.
I am of mixed ethnicity, so I'm half Mexican and half European American, which has been a pretty interesting part of my educational experience in the Oregon school system and such. So I'm in ELP 520 as part of a requirement in the PACE program. So I came to Portland State specifically because of their offering in post-secondary and adult continuing education.
My name is CJ Dunn. I am what you would consider a traditional student in that I am 24 and starting graduate school.
Between my undergraduate and now entering this master's program, I waited 6 years, which I actually considered to be traditional, which I realize may or may not be, but it's got me thinking about how adult learners in particular, we're kind of shifting in terms of what the norm is, especially in terms of returning to higher education or coming back into a career.
Well, my name is Guiming Tang. I'm from Guangzhou, China. I'm currently a doctoral student at the Graduate School of Education, Portland State University. I'm also teaching Chinese at Kevin Gable, an independent school in Portland, Oregon.
And I came to that interest through the McNair Scholars Program at PSU, which deals with students from a low socioeconomic or first generation or underrepresented group in the university environment. And I think all three of those sort of have something to do or define my experience as a student.
I'm from Seoul, South Korea. Seoul is the capital of South Korea, which is the second largest metropolitan city. I didn't know. I recently found out. It's really crowded, so atmosphere is very different from Portland.
I identify as white. My mother used to say that we were Heinz, 57 different kinds, American.
I have been a teacher for more than 30 years. Before I came to the United States, I had a chance to work in a university for about 20 years, a middle school for 3 years, and high school for 2 years. I like education. I enjoy working with kids.
I'm international, which is non-traditional thing, and returning student. So being an international student is already hard enough because you live far away from your parents and friends.
Sometimes I always compare teachers to a candle that lights others but consumes itself.
I recognize that I'm very much in the throes of Perry's relativist thinking, but most significantly from this class, I realize I have sort of ideas commitment issues. And this class got me thinking about potentially how that's setting up a barrier for my own individuation, in particular self-concept and identity, and whether this commitment phobia is preventing this sort of development of a real concrete sense of self. But I also recognize that it's a product of the way I've been conditioned to think and approach ideas, primarily. So as an adult learner, I come to the classroom with this way of thinking, but a positive piece is that I'm very comfortable with uncertainty, ambiguity, and sort of the unknown around ideas, and comfortable in that space, and being very fluid in my approach. And I can identify with very different perspectives and feel comfortable doing so. I just can't seem to pick one.
I won't forget the term dualism till I die. Because on the second week of the class, Michael, the professor, introduced Perry's scheme of intellectual development, which is dualism, multiplicity, relativism, and constructed knowledge. The culture I come from always have answers for the questions, and also answers are given by teachers. In classroom, professor don't give us right answers, or he doesn't even, and it's like, oh, let's talk about it. So it's like, what is he doing, I kind of expect, okay, he's gonna give me the answers at the end of classroom. So I kind of expect that, but it turned out to be he didn't. So it was really uncomfortable. And then also in the reading material, I learned that I'm in the dualism stage, and whereas my American classmates are constructed knowledge stage. So I feel really, really scared. How can I keep up with the class? Since I'm in dualism, always right and wrong and black and white. But that was a really shocking experience when I entered this classroom.
There are areas, like I said, involving ethnicity or LGBTQ issues, spirituality, gender equality. There's issues that have been contentious in maybe the way I tend to believe, the way my family believes, the way others in a religion that I associate myself with believe, and that's caused a lot of tension for me. So part of me wants to be dualistic on certain issues, and part of me isn't at all. Or I'm currently in a multiplistic stage where I'm sort of in between, and this has caused a lot of fear and tension and cognitive dissonance in the past 6 years that I've been in higher education, which, there's other issues that are much easier for me, but these issues I silence myself in the classroom, and I stay quiet for fear of saying the wrong thing, or using the wrong language, or being in the wrong stance or in the wrong position.
I kind of never really stopped going to college. I've always been in school since I was, probably about yay tall. One thing I feel like I bring to the classroom with that more traditional aspect is it's where the classroom is full of a lot of people who are probably more non-traditional students. I can provide the other side of the coin aspect of what it was like from a more traditional standpoint.
To be a good teacher, it seemed to me that I need to live and learn. In addition, I should also learn to reflect. As Confucius says, learning without thought is labor lost. Thought without learning is danger. This course has enabled me to realize that learning to reflect on what we have learned in class is very, very important, and also is essential to our professional development.
I really find myself being taken towards open discussions where people can talk about their experiences and they can relate the subject matter to those personal experiences. And I feel not only does that benefit the teacher, because he himself will know how to deal with different situations, scenarios that the students will bring to the table, as well as it's nice for the students to hear and understand, where people might be coming from with different perspectives on life. And one of the things professors need to realize is that these people are adults as well, and even though they didn't come from the same lot of life as the professor may have, they're still an adult. And one of the things that I've actually been really fortunate of having professors who are very understanding of that, and they don't look down on me, and they work with me and help me learn, as opposed to just kind of look down on me and question why I may have a hard time getting something. They work with me, and they actually increase my confidence as opposed to breaking it down.
I've definitely come this term to realize more so than ever before what it means to value diversity. So it's been something I have valued, but never before have I been exposed to as many rich conversations with people who are genuinely diverse than I have in the past 10 weeks in this class and other classes on real issues in education or development or life, and kind of seeing how that shakes me out of this place of being afraid to own my own voice and to own my own values, or even to admit and discuss the fact that maybe I don't know what I value in certain areas. What we're saying is, in this space, we all have a right to these different opinions and to these different places in life, and we can fully respect that without saying we're going to fully agree with those assertions or ideas that come up in class. And I think that's a lot to take in, is what I've kind of come to realize. And I think that the reflective processes we've gone through in this class in ELB 520 are really important, almost to be able to start kind of making meaning out of all of these various viewpoints in the articles from our classmates. You can't take in that much diversity without having a chance to self-reflect and to make some sort of meaning of that.
Concept I find it very valuable is being diverse. Being diverse, like, what does that mean? That's my first impression. And then talking about being different, you have to acknowledge different people from different background. But the culture I'm from, unity or being the same is more important than being different. Being different means you are excluded. So, human beings are social creatures. We love to interact with others, but if you are being different, then you don't have friends around you. Also, in Korea, it's the funny thing is that we often misuse the word "we are different" as "you are wrong." So that shows that it's not, we don't mean that, but we often misuse it. That shows we don't really aware of being diverse.
After a lot of reflection, now I've come to realize the great value of American education. I think the value of American education lies in students learning independently, critically, and creatively. Students are actively engaged and encouraged to think freely and independently. They are also encouraged to challenge teachers and professors in class, and their different views are respected by teachers. Teachers serve as a guide and a facilitator. Students enjoy both democracy and freedom in the classrooms, and they always bombard the teachers and professors with any questions.
I have a high expectation of my own involvement and engagement within a classroom environment. Some may notice that I do tend to speak out in class, and I feel very comfortable doing that. In fact, I view it as a critical component of my learning to engage and be actively engaging, and I expect that from my peers as well, which I realize can lead, as a student, can lead to some kind of dissonance between what's actually happening and what I expect. I also have high expectations of the involvement of my professors or my teachers. On the flip side, in terms of being a facilitator in a classroom environment, I recognize that I also bring those expectations of the students, the learning community. And so a challenge for me as I move forward working with adults is how do I create that space and take people who do not have the same background, do not have the same comfort, actively engaging, and bring that element into place.
One of the preconceptions I had about adult education is kind of that maybe coming back for adult learners, it might be kind of harder for them to understand and grasp concepts. It kind of the saying, like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And when I'm walking into it, I was kind of more expecting that kind of ethos. But I was very happy and surprised this past 2 terms, this term last spring when I started adult education. I feel for me, it was really, really, really great to see how accepting people are of and their willingness to learn and maybe question what they had previously thought before and adapt to these new changes that are constantly happening within adult education. I knew what I wanted to do and I knew how I would learn, but never before have I really sat and had to think about what does he or she need to know how to learn? And for me, it was just kind of an eye-opening experience.
I know many people in China think that the US education is superior to the Chinese education. Some people even think that the moon in the United States is brighter than that in China. When comparing the Chinese education system and the US education system, some people think that Chinese education system creates smart students, while the US education system raises free thinkers. It's likely that there's something there. As a teacher and learner in both countries, my way of knowing is contextual. I hold the view that each education system has its merits and demerits. Systematic learning and solid foundations of basic knowledge is the basis of creativity. Without good foundations of basic knowledge, creativity is like building a castle in the air. I consider it important to find a balanced point between the two education systems. I hope that I can find out an education system that works for the kids of both countries.
I've always believed that we continue to learn throughout the whole life process. I never made any assumptions about that we stopped learning, but this idea of there being developmental stages that were unique to adults was something that this class completely exposed me to for the first time. But I realized that I had very strong feelings about what it meant to work with adults in a learning environment. And some of the main components was the challenges associated with it. So obviously feeling that oftentimes adult learning is highly emotionally charged. Regardless, there's that interest and there's that motivation that we can tap into. And I think that's my biggest takeaway, is that there is a source of adults that's very different from adolescents, and if we can tap into that, then we can overcome all those barriers.
I definitely made a distinction between academic development and personal development. And I think I saw a crossover, how I grew as a person because of some knowledge base that I developed. But I thought that there should be a distinction. And that, I mean, I had a very competitive view of education as a place that's really based on meritocracy. And I think that doing your best and investing fully in your education is still really important. But I don't think you can believe in competition in higher education as fully as I seem to without really feeling like you have to leave your personal issues at the door. At least as an undergrad, I remember there's this dialogue you have with peers like, oh, so-and-so just comes in and they tell their story and takes all the class time. But that's how people construct meaning, is they take whatever's happening in the classroom, whether it's content or skills, and they're integrating that into who they are, and they're retelling their stories in light of that information. And that's really constructing an identity, and that's making meaning. So I really appreciate that development.
So what I expect is like a strategy. Teacher, teach me how to teach adults. Like, here is the strategy, how to motivate them, how to communicate effectively with the adults. So my expectation was to learn the skills and strategies. But here asking what is defined adults and defined what learning adult means. What I've learned is that strategy is not important. How to interact with adult is that you gotta self-reflection. We did a self-reflection paper a lot. Kind of, teachers should value adults' experiences and then utilize them with the guided teaching. So not put the information in your head, like taking out what you have in your mind and reflect that, and then come out with a lesson, with your own lesson. So if you learn with your heart, it remains you forever. But teachers put your information in your brain, it doesn't last that much. After your class is over, you totally forget. So here, what I've learned is self-reflection, and you can be the teacher of yourself. That's the most valuable concept I learned in this classroom.